Cryptids have a way of evoking strong reactions out of people, whether it is unwavering belief on one side or outright dismissal on the other side. There are some people that will find truth in any shred of evidence, and others that dismiss everything outright. From Bigfoot and the Chupacabra to Loch Ness Monster and the Mokele Mbembe, there's stories of cryptids that exist all across the world. But there's often a more nuanced reality behind these stories, some shreds of truth that oftentimes get exaggerated and become stories and fantasies of their own, which gives rise to the cryptids. Today, I want to talk about one such cryptid that haunted the American Southwest, a cryptid known as the Red Ghost. My name's Cody, and welcome to Curious Realities. Thank you for joining me today as we explore the curious reality behind the Red Ghost. You wake up early in the morning before the sun rises. The children in your home are still asleep, but your partner is already awake and packing the standard day's gear necessary to spend a long day checking the livestock on the ranch. The year is 1883. None of the modern utilities we take for granted are offered. This is a standard day. It's a cool morning as you take your first steps outside. Your partner meets up with another member of the community and heads off to begin the day's work. You wake the children and begin preparing yourself for your tasks for the day. The ranch you reside on is small, only a few other families call this place home, but this comes with the benefit of a tight-knit community, where everyone knows and relies on one another. As mid-morning rolls around, and the children are all gathered in one home, you realize that you're running low on water. While you stay in the home with the children, the other woman who's with you makes her way down to the ranch's water source to fetch a bucket of water. While she's gone, you hear the dogs begin to bark incessantly. The dogs are guardians and are trained to be on alert, so the barking isn't too unusual. However, you notice this is more than the standard alert bark. Still, it's not too uncommon. Though the Civil War has ended, there are still wars being waged against native tribes, and being in southeast Arizona, the thought crosses your mind that possibly something related to this has caused the dogs to react this way. It's a long shot, but it gives you some comfort. That is, until you hear a shriek from outside. You rush to the window and you see what appears to be a reddish-hued beast run by with a devilish-looking creature upon its back. Afraid, you determine it is best to remain in the home and wait for the others to arrive. After all, the safety of the children is the highest priority. The woman never returns with the water. Hours pass until finally the party tending to the livestock returns. You recount to them what happened and set out to find the woman, hoping that she is in her home or somewhere else safe. To everyone's dismay, you find her trampled remains. As it's the darkness of night at this point, it's decided that the following day, everyone will search for clues as to what happened. When the light of morning comes again, you and the others set out and quickly find something which indicates what may have happened to the unfortunate woman. Hoof prints, larger than that of a horse and unfamiliarly shaped, abound. Amongst them, there are strands of reddish hair. Days later, another story spreads through the region. A group of prospectors, camped in the nearby hills, claimed they were awakened by thunderous hooves and screaming. Their tent collapsed as something barreled through. Staggering outside, they caught only a glimpse of a massive beast fleeing into the darkness. Once again, they found oversized hoofprints and strands of red hair. These became the first encounters of what would soon be known as the Red Ghost. Most surviving accounts today repeat these same early stories in the same way, likely because so few original sources exist outside of the Mojave County Minor. As word spread, details shifted and grew more dramatic. One individual claimed to have witnessed the creature kill a bear. Another said it vanished into thin air. Others told stories of it caving in mine entrances or trampling horses and other livestock. Like many cryptid legends, exaggeration quickly took hold. But beneath the embellishments, certain patterns remained consistent. Hoofprints, red hair, and a massive, unfamiliar animal. When stories are examined carefully, truth often reveals itself through repetition. So as time went on, there were more sightings and more accounts. A rancher along the Salt River by the name of Cyrus Hamblin was one of the individuals to encounter the Red Ghost. However, he was able to identify the beast as a camel. Upon its back, he noted what appeared to be a man. While Hamlin was known for being a respectable and truthful man, his story was met with skepticism. Camels, after all, are not from this area. And given this, I think it's understandable why people would discredit his account. Thankfully, though, more people than not were inclined to believe Mr. Hamlin, all thanks to his sober-minded and well-respected reputation. Some weeks later, more prospectors had an encounter with the beast, this time along the Verde River. They also noted something on its back resembling a man. These prospectors were not taken completely off guard, unlike the former prospectors, and were able to fire a shot off at the beast. The shot missed, sending the beast to flight. The prospectors rushed to where it was and claimed to have found a human skull, partially decayed with bits of flesh and hair still attached. More sightings continued, and while there were stories of the red ghost appearing 30 feet tall, or with other exaggerations, similarities could still be found. In most retellings of encounters, actual evidence and truth continued to come through in the form of hoof prints and red hair being found. Around a year later, near Phoenix, a rancher saw the red ghost, this time simply grazing on grass on his land. The rancher approached the red ghost, supposedly with the aim of lassoing it, but the skittish beast fled. The rancher was able to once again confirm the red ghost as being a camel with a human skeleton strapped to its back. Following the Mexican-American War and the Gadsden Purchase, the U.S. acquired the present-day states of Texas, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, as well as parts of Arizona, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. This new large swath of territory provided over 500,000 square miles of land, much of it being harsh desert terrain. In addition to scouting and surveying, the U.S. remained engaged in conflict with many native tribes. Covering such immense distances proved difficult for traditional horses and mules, which struggled in the extreme heat and arid conditions. Recognizing this challenge, Major Henry Wayne suggested to Senator Jefferson Davis that importing camels to be used to supply animals would be the solution. Davis agreed, and upon becoming Secretary of War under President Franklin Pierce, secured $30,000 worth of funding to begin the camel experiment. Given that this proposition was previously genuinely laughed out of the committee the previous two times it was proposed by Wayne in 1851 and 1852, this was a big personal victory for Major Wayne. The U.S. initially acquired 33 camels from the Ottoman Empire and arrived back to our shores with 34, as one gave birth on the return voyage. Baby camels, by the way, are exceptionally cute. With the remaining funds, the Army acquired 41 more camels shortly afterward, and so, by 1857, the U.S. Army Camel Corps was created, consisting of 75 total camels. At first, the experiment showed promise, but problems quickly emerged. Camels required specialized care. They clashed with horses and were often aggressive toward their handlers. To quote a military.com article about the Camel Corps, sources linked below in the description, the camels weren't as easygoing as domesticated beasts of burden. They spit, vomit, and poop at will, even on their handlers. They are also prone to biting passerby when provoked, even if that provocation is routine discipline. In spite of this, they did prove to be able to carry up to 3 times the amount of mules, and were able to keep pace even when burdening a full load. A detachment of 25 camels was sent on a survey mission to map a wagon road from Fort Defiance, Arizona to the Colorado River, crossing states and many miles of desert, including the unforgiving Mojave Desert. The heat, I hear, sometimes made one wish for a nuclear winter. This mission was a success. By October of 1857, the Camel Corps had reached California, and the Army began considering expansion of the program. But, as is often the case, history had other plans. With the outbreak of the U.S. Civil War in 1861, the Camel Corps was split between Union and Confederate forces. The Union camels were stationed at Fort Tejon in California, where they were primarily used for transportation and postal routes. The Confederates' camels were used by some officers, but encountered the unpleasant issues previously mentioned about the camels, and most were killed off due to being generally unpleasant. Following the war, the Confederates' camels were retaken, and the government determined it best to disband the Camel Corps. As for the camels, some were auctioned off to circuses or sold, though many were simply released into the wild. Even some of the camels that were bought from the government were eventually released. Haji Ali, an Ottoman born citizen, purchased some camels in the hopes of using them to establish a freight service. This business venture failed, and with that, his camels were released in an area near Camp Verde, Arizona, and animals not meant to exist in the American West at this point in time were suddenly loose across the frontier. A legend of a beast with a ghostly rider, trampling people and property only to disappear as mysteriously as it appeared. A beast of enormous size, able to kill bears. Accounts from people of all walks of life, from friends, neighbors, and respected individuals in the community with hard proof. It's intriguing. It's easy to see how word of the Red Ghost spread around and how it became a legend to the people of the Southwest. It has all the makings of a great cryptid story. And thankfully for us, this one does have an explanation. Unfortunately for us, that explanation is not an actual cryptid. As I'm sure you've pieced together, the Red Ghost was a camel. Not just a camel, but a camel with a body strapped to it. While it might not have been a cryptid, that's still pretty spooky. Most of the common people were unaware of the Camel Corps and would never encounter a camel. There were some people who were aware of them and did encounter them in more normal circumstances. Prospectors would encounter camels from time to time, either using them as target practice or attempting to put them back to work. And in at least one case, someone did use the camel for a more sadistic purpose. The Red Ghost did, in fact, have a rider. That rider was not alive. Initially, it was speculated that the rider might have been a traveler. Out of water and fading fast, he might have strapped himself to the camel in the hopes that it would take him to a water source. However, in 1893, Mizzou Hastings, a priest who had a ranch near the San Francisco River, would encounter the Red Ghost, and this time there would be answers. He found it grazing in his turnip field and managed to shoot it dead. Upon examination of the corpse, it was found to have very little left of the burden that was the corpse rider. Its body was scarred from years of damage due to the rawhide straps and knots used to secure the individual to its back. It was determined that these rawhide straps which had held the rider in place could not have been placed there by the rider himself. Someone else had strapped the man to the camel. The Mojave County Miner wrote, "The only question is whether the man was tied on for revenge or merely as an ugly piece of humor by someone who had a camel and a corpse for which he had no use." To this day, it is unknown why the man was strapped to the camel, nor whether he was alive or dead when he was. Some speculate it was done as a form of punishment or revenge against the man. Others have postured that a corpse was placed on the camel out of despise of the animal. What is known is that whatever occurred did have an impact on the camel. It did develop a dislike of humans. The Red Ghost did charge at people rather than fleeing, as other camels were prone to do, and it did trample a woman. And it's terrible what happened to the creature, and it's understandable for it to have reacted in the way that it did. But it was that aggression, in addition to the deceased rider, that made it so easy for the story of the Red Ghost to spread. While the cryptid itself was explained, the legacy does not end there. Camel sightings were in the Southwest and continued through the 1940s. Even through the 50s and 60s, there were tales of sightings of camels. Some people still believe that some camel descendants of the U.S. Camel Corps are still wandering around out there. So, if you ever find yourself in the Southwest and spot something unusual on the horizon, you may now know exactly what you're seeing. Or maybe, just maybe, you're seeing the ghost of the Red Ghost. Thank you for listening to the story of the Red Ghost and the U.S. Camel Corps. If you made it this far, I do really appreciate it. My name's Cody, and this is pretty obviously my first attempt making anything like this. I've been wanting to tell some stories for a little while now. I think I actually wrote this script back in 2021, and it finally got to the point that I was like, I just need to pull the trigger and do something. There's quite a few stories that I do want to tell, from science and history to even stuff going on these days, so I do look forward to doing so. If you have any constructive criticism, if you liked the video, if you didn't like the video, if you got anything that I need to know, please just let me know down in the comments, and I would really appreciate that. But again, if you've made it this far, I do just want to say thank you very much. Appreciate you watching. Hope you learned something, and I hope you were at least a little bit entertained. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.